Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And before we get into this week's topic, once again, thank you to all of our listeners for listening to our podcast, sharing our podcast, and just being a fan of what we do. We love doing this every week, and I'm glad that you're on board and you're with us. So thank you. And
I just told Tim this, but it's hot off the presses. In the near future, we may have our own website. It'll be in the work, but it's, for all of our fans who are interested. No Name Music Cast is stepping it up, y'all.
There we are. We maybe we'll post some funny pictures up there of us. We'll have all the episodes up there. I don't know what we'll put on there, but there'll be some cool stuff because we have the Facebook, we have the Instagram, and we now have the Twitter. And we're trying to develop the Twitter. I think that's the future, is the Twitter. I
feel like the website, we might be able to add like extra content. I don't know. It's very hot off the presses. Like Tim learned this 15 minutes ago. But in the future, that may be a thing.
Well, we will see. So our cyber future is great.
Yes.
Okay, so before we get into the topic, which is Joy's pick this week, we always do a tip of the week or tip of the day, depending on which way you want to spin it. I haven't decided where I'm landing with this, day or week. It's whatever I feel like at the time. So this is tip of the day. Tip of the day. It's just a tip. So Joy, do you have a tip you could share?
I specifically do, and it's very brand. So I had to sit through everybody's favorite, very long conference call regarding marketing and corporate jargon and all this stuff, right? It's me and all the managers, because I'm the HR manager for my company, and all the big wigs, as you would say, right, Tim? I'm stepping it up in the world. Well,
exactly.
I have a dog. And he felt the need in the middle of this little conference call about how we're going to exceed the company if we're going to implement all these things to bring out all his toys right before the conference call. Well, I didn't think anything about it. Finn is a very playful dog. Like, he kicks his toys around like he's playing soccer, Tim. Mm-hmm. But I'm halfway through the conference call and I'm looking, and it looks like there's just a bunch of random stuff all over the ground in the middle. And it's Finn's toys, and I can't say anything because I don't want anyone to to draw attention to it. But I know, because everybody's like, what's in your house? Like, everybody's looking around trying to figure out what's behind the person at the conference call. And I'm like, oh God, they're gonna think I'm just a complete slob. So I spent the entire time. So my advice, the tip is, always check the ground area behind you, as Charlie's shoes are sitting directly behind me right now, before you get on your worthy conference call at your new company.
Or use one of those Zoom filters that make it look like you're just in a professional business environment.
Here's the dumb part about this, Tim. This guy has some type of stock in this program called, I don't want to get into details. There's a program. I don't want to, put all it out there.
Sure.
A very specific software he let us use that wasn't Zoom. And it wasn't very good, but it didn't have that option. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave it at that.
Well, I remember during the lockdown time, I had to conduct a job interview from home. And I did it in the kitchen, and the background is it was just a plain wall, really. You can see a bit of the stairs, but it's just a plain wall. And I did it down there because I thought it would look a lot more professional than doing it up here, where I've got Ghostbusters and Moonraker posters.
I do all my stuff right here, and everyone's just gonna have to accept it.
Yeah, but I was trying to be good. And then our little cat Jack decided that he wanted in on the interview, so he came in going, "Meow, meow." And in the end, he jumped up on the kitchen table and got in front of the camera, and he was like sniffing things and. It was fine. It was a great moment, if you will, in hiring.
All of us who lived through lockdown, we really know how that feels.
Exactly.
But anyway, yeah, that was one of those. It would have been so bad if it wasn't just everyone. You know what I mean, Tim? Like, all the bigwigs of the company on one call, and I'm like looking over my shoulder, but I'm trying not to. I'm like, Finn, why? Anyway, that's my tip.
But there we go. Well, my tip this week is, I'm sure most people listening to this use Amazon. I would assume. It's pretty much universal at this point. And when you order stuff from Amazon, you get massive boxes. You order shoe polish and you get a box that's the size of the Fourth Bridge or something. Anyway, there's a lot of cardboard that comes from Amazon. And if you was, let's say, for example, thinning out your vinyl record collection. Let's just say you was doing that for argument's sake, and you was only keeping the good stuff and some of the stuff that you bought down the road that you didn't really like that much. You was selling it off on eBay. Now, you can buy in cardboard inserts that go in the vinyl record mailers, and they're actually quite expensive. You get a box of 20, and they're $30 or something. It's more expensive than they should be for a little piece of cut cardboard that just slips in. But my tip for this week is that don't spend that money. Go to your recycling bin, which I have now got because, we've been through that. Go back a few episodes if you want the whole recycling bin saga. But all you do is you get those massive Amazon boxes, you draw around your record, and you cut it with a pair of scissors. And would you look at that? You're recycling and you're using it for packaging.
Look at Tim. He's saving the world one Amazon box at a time. See, Charlie, where my husband buys and sells, like we were talking about, he saves all of his boxes and reuses them. So you and Charlie are just cut from the same, what is that saying? Cut from the same sheet, from the same wool? Cut from the same cloth. Everything but what I said. Harder words. I don't know why I couldn't think of what it was. A sheet, wool. Where did wool come from, Tim? Like you guys are on like a back of a sheep? cut from the same wool. It's a good sign of how this episode's going to go. Okay, continue. Okay, so let me just do a quick CD of the week for our YouTube friends and also for the people listening. But as I said, we're putting this content out on YouTube to spread the word and so people can see us if they really want to see what we look like when we're recording our episodes. So there you go. Anyhow, this week's CD of the week is a CD by Dave Stewart called Greetings from the Gutter. Now, I would imagine, Joy, you have not heard of this album, or have you? I've heard the name Dave Stewart, but I've never heard the album. Well, Dave Stewart is one of the Eurythmics with Annie Lennox. Yes. And we had a conversation about him. Yeah, he's a very talented songwriter, record producer, engineer. He's a full package when it comes to music production and performance. And, even outside of the Eurythmics and even outside of his solo work, he's been involved with so much music. His studio work, his recording he's done, his producing, his engineering, his songwriting, etc., etc. But anyhow, in 1994, I just looked on the back to check, he released this album called Greetings from the Gutter. And as you would imagine, he plays most of the instruments and he wrote all the songs and produced it and all that kind of stuff. Of course. And there is the single from here is called Heart of Stone, which was actually in the UK a big hit when it came out. I've heard that song. That's the only song I've heard from him. Yeah, it's actually a really good song. And now I don't know whether he released any other solo albums after Greetings from the Gutter, but this is an absolute favourite of mine. I remember liking Heart of Stone, and I went to buy this album, and I'd assume it probably came from Our Price, I think. Or no, it would have come from HMV in Hounslow High Street is where it would have come from. But this is not the same copy. I got this off eBay. But every track on this is fantastic. I really like this album. And I'd had it digitally ever since I'd owned it originally in my digital iTunes collection. But a few years ago, when I got back into collecting physical music, I found a copy on eBay and I bought a copy of it. And I don't know, I really enjoy this album. They're very well written songs. They're very obviously the production and everything is superb on here. And I don't know, this is just a favourite from 1994, which I'd like to share with you. The only thing I know about Dave Stewart, just to throw it out there, is I read a story that him and Annie Lennox were sitting in front of a piano. The song Here Comes the Rain Again. So she was sitting with him and they were trying to come up with music and they were having writer's block like no other, like just couldn't come up with anything. Mm-hmm. And they were looking out at the window and the rain was coming in. And Annie Lennox said, Here Comes the Rain Again. And that's how they came up with the song. He wrote it from there. That's how talented he is. There you go. He's a good guy. I really need to check in to see what Dave Stewart is doing these days. But anyhow, there we are. That's my CD pick of the week. Dave Stewart's Greetings from the Gutter. There we go. There we are. All right, so we're going to get into this week's topic. As I said, it's Joy's pick, and I know she's very excited about this because she told me she was excited earlier. So, Joy, it's over to you. So I have programmed in intertwined, whatever, the words. I've weaved things together to make this a topic, but for us to also build a playlist off of it. And here's what it is. It's songs you didn't know were covers. Now, there's some obvious ones me and Tim have talked about, but there's some on these I did not know And I'm one of those people who like, oh yeah, I knew that was a cover. 76 Elvis did it, and then 94 blah 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 did. Right, Tim? Like that's just who I am, and I feel like Tim's the same. Well, I found a few great articles that brought me songs I didn't know, so I thought it'd be cool to take the songs that the originals and make a playlist maybe on Spotify or something, and post that because we have the No Name Music. We did one before we did a playlist. Make that like our Facebook post for this episode, so you guys could hear the originals.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think a lot of our listeners do use Spotify. I don't use it, but I think there's a good proportion of our folks who use Spotify. So I think that'd be kind of cool to post that.
Yeah. And I mean, you could always Google the songs. Like even if you don't use Spotify, you'll be able to see the link kind of the stuff embedded, just Google it on YouTube or whatever, search it on YouTube, whatever you call it. But anyway, so the number one that everybody doesn't know, but me and Tim have talked very heavily, so I'm not going to talk much about it, is obviously we know Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Want to Have Fun was originally done by Robert Hazard, who, by the way, you've heard his version, right, Tim?
Sure. Yeah.
It sounds so different. Like the song takes a completely different track being sung by a man. It's very interesting how that works.
Yeah, and it's because like the Cyndi Lauper version has that 80s production sheen about it. And in fact, she did two versions. She did like the 80s-tastic version. And then I think at some point in the 90s, she did more kind of a laid-back type version. It was the same idea, but it was a different feel.
I don't know why. Maybe it's because from a girl's perspective, she's saying girls just want to have fun and she's a girl. Like, that's the way I see it. And then when a guy says it, the context of the song shifts.
I think if a guy's singing that, it just seems a bit creepy to me.
Maybe that's what it is. In his video, he's kind of melancholy in the way he sings it. Very, you know what I mean, Tim? So maybe that's why. He was like a new wave musician type thing. If anybody's never heard of him, he had that kind of sound. But I don't want to spend too much time on that one because we've talked about that one heavily. This was one I think I knew, but maybe I'm just saying that because I want to say I knew it. Blinded by the Light, Manfred Mann's Earth Band was originally done by Bruce Springsteen.
I did know that, yes.
I don't know if I knew it or not. Did I know it? What does his riff sound like?
It's something I only found out a few years ago. I always knew it was, always thought it was just Manfred Mann's Earth Band. Yeah. And it's got that famous line, wrapped up like a deuce, not wrapped up like a douche. As some people, that's like a misheard lyric.
Yeah, but, definitely. Two very different things.
Yes, absolutely. But I found out, not that long ago, really, 10 years ago or so, that it was originally a Bruce Springsteen song. And have you heard the Springsteen version?
I listened to it for about 30 seconds, and I was just kind of like, wow, I don't know what to think of this. Yeah,
because, like the Manfred Mann version is very upbeat.
That's the best part about the song.
Yeah, and his version is reasonably faithful to the cover, the original, but it's not quite the same up-tempo, punch-in beat type thing.
Once again, it's kind of interesting when two different people do the song. You can say the same words, but it's the way you say them or the production or whatever, it can completely change the tone of the song. I love on the notes on this article, Tim, it says, Manfred Mann's Earth Band revved up like a deuce, unlike Bruce Springsteen. But no, his was so much, I don't want to say darker because that's not a good way to say it, but it does sound like a Bruce Springsteen song. I guess if you've ever heard Bruce Springsteen, it's very him.
Exactly. And it's like, I think we've covered this before, like Born in the USA. Like if you, I'm not talking about the cover, but like when Bruce Springsteen did the 80s version of Born in the USA, it's that very kind of bombastic, yeah, America type thing. But if you listen to the lyrics are incredibly dark. But his original demo fits the narrative of his lyrics so much better, and it's very like in a minor key, and it's very down, and fits the lyrics. And Blinded by the Light is not quite as dark and down as that, but when Springsteen did it originally, it had that kind of more flavor to it. Do you know what I mean?
No, it did. I agree with that. That's a great way of saying it. I couldn't find the words, but yeah, I think you nailed it, Tim. But yeah, that was one that I feel like maybe I had heard it once before, but I don't think I ever sought it out. Does that make sense? Like, sure. I don't know that I ever found it. Or I just really want to believe I knew that. Because that's who I am. So this one, okay, I don't know if Tim would know this artist, but it's Lil Bow Wow, I Want Candy, which I Want Candy has been done 1,000 times by other artists. I think that poor song's been redid about 30 times. Aaron Carter did it in the 2000s. Apparently, it was a Bo Diddley track.
Oh, well, I can tell you, Bow Wow Wow, I Want Candy. I do know that song.
Oh, wow.
It's from the album C30, C60, C90, which is a reference to cassette tapes. And that song is also referenced in Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
That makes sense. Now I get it.
Because DJ P Pants does a song called I Want Candy, Bubblegum and Taffy, something to do with Jessica Tandy. And it's sort of vaguely to do with the Bow Wow Wow version.
See, and then the version that I grew up on was Aaron Carter in the 2000s.
Oh.
And so, Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys' little brother who had a singing career for like 30 seconds and now he's lost his mind and went completely off the rails.
Sure.
That's the version that I know. And I remember there was this episode of the TV show. This is so stupid. There's a show growing up called Lizzie McGuire. And every kid who's my age knows exactly what I'm talking about right now, Tim. It was just a Disney favorite. And there was an episode where Aaron Carter was performing on this, like on some lot near them because they lived in California, like recording his video. And it was the I Want Candy video, but it was during Christmas time. Mm-hmm. So like you see like Aaron Carter come out and there's all these little elves dressed up and they're holding big candy canes. And like I distinctly grew up on that specific episode. And every Christmas I go back and replay that one. It brings me the best nostalgia. It's so dumb, but it's so amazing. But yeah, I was have you heard the Bo Diddley version, though?
I mean, I'm familiar with Bo Diddley's work and the Bo Diddley beat. And see, to have a really good Bo Diddley song, it needs to have Bo Diddley in the name of the song because everything's like Bo does this and Diddley beat and Bo Diddley something. It
should have been Bo Loves Candy.
Yeah, but I mean, now I'm hearing the two songs in my head together. It doesn't surprise me because you could hear how the famous Bo Diddley beat would go.
It works so good. It was, I mean, it's got that joyous chorus, that beat, that upbeat. Like, I mean, his version's great. Like, I can't wait to if you haven't heard it, when I put it on the playlist, everybody, you're gonna be like, oh my God. And apparently, I mean, it's been done by like, it was called The Strange Loves, but Bo Diddley plays on it. I don't know all the details, but it was his song. The Strange Loves played with him, and it was in 1968, and it's just fantastic. But anyway, so I will say, if you've never heard it, it's great. It works so well, though, but I don't know that I knew that before researching that, and that one was interesting to me because I feel like I Want Candy's been done like 30 times. There's probably 5 versions of it that I can think of.
Yeah, and I honestly didn't know it was a cover. As I said, I'm familiar with Bow Wow Wow and that song, but no, I did not know that was from Mr. Diddley. That's not his real name, but I can't remember what it is.
I have no clue either. So this one I knew, but I hadn't really listened to the song until I was doing research on it. It's Joan Jett's I Love Rock and Roll. It was originally done by the Arrows. Oh, I think I got him.
A song which is so identifiably Joan Jett, a song which I've played in many cover bands with lots of different singers and open mic nights and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought it was a Joan Jett song. I did not know that was a cover.
And the crazy part is, Tim, when you go back and listen to the original, she didn't change a thing. It's the exact same thing. It's just a woman singing it. Like, it is line for line, even to the like the things they choose to emphasize, like the way their voice makes that sound, like the way they sing it is almost identical. It's crazy. Like, it is piece by piece the same song. It's just being sung by a man. Yeah,
I think Joan Jett has got like a long history of doing cover versions because I've got some of her albums. In fact, I've got like one of the albums I have is like a greatest hits of Joan Jett, and like almost half of it is cover tunes that she's done. But I mean, what she brings to the table is her Joan Jett attitude, and that's what's most important out of anything.
And I mean, I'm going to say it. I could never hear I Love Rock and Roll again and be perfectly fine. It's just one of those songs that there are so many other great Crimson and Clover. I could hear that every day. I Hate Myself for Loving You is probably my favorite Joan Jett song. Like I could bump those every day, but I could go a million years without hearing I Love Rock and Roll or Bad Reputation again.
Yeah, I think I'm probably right with Bad Reputation, but I tend to agree with I Love Rock and Roll, though. I haven't reached the full that Guns N' Roses song that will never be spoken of level with it yet.
No, it's not there.
Because I've played all the bands I played it in were in England, and I don't think I've actually played it since I've lived here.
That's interesting because it's a pretty popular song. I don't know. I think my thing comes from the fact that Joan Jett has so many other songs that I just would prefer here, if that makes sense.
Yes, well, absolutely 100%.
Like, I think Hate Myself for Loving You is one of the best rock songs ever. Like, everything about that, to the breakdown, to the solos, to the everything, and the attitude she puts into it. If there was one female rock song that I rank probably at the top, it's probably I Hate Myself for Loving You. Crimson and Clover is pretty close. And then I really like Barracuda, of course. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean that's a heart song, but again, that's another one.
I was just thinking covered. Female rocks.
Yeah.
But if I'm thinking female rock stars, those are probably my top three.
Yeah.
All right, this one I didn't know, and we've talked about this song because I told you about the Disney version. It's Mambo Number 5. Remember a little bit of Mickey in my life, a little bit of Minnie by my side. Yeah. So you heard the Lou Bega. Apparently, it is a riff from a 1949 Spanish composer. His name is Perez Padro, and he provided what they call a skeleton. So you know how that's a really bad version, but that sound, little bit of Monica, that is in that. So it was like during the big band age, which makes sense for what you hear when you hear Lou Bega. He took that riff, and that's how he came up with. And it's literally called like something like Mambo. I don't know if it's called Mambo Number 5, but it's called Mambo something. But that was the skeleton for Mambo Number 5. I did not know that.
I did not know that too. I have a very distinct memory that goes on with Mambo Number 5. And I went to visit my friend who was at Durham University. And we was at some nightclub in Durham called Clute. I don't know if it's still there, but you know, I didn't go to university. I didn't attend further education, but I stopped into my friend who went to Durham University a few times, and I sort of understood what it was all about, having spent about 2 weeks with them in their shared house. So you know, I understand the inner workings of how this works, and. Like they're all going out to a nightclub on a Wednesday night. I mean, nobody in real life is doing that. You have to be a student to do that.
No, not even a little bit. You would be able to wake up the next day.
Exactly. So we go to this nightclub and we get in there, and you know, nightclubs are not really my scene, but you know, I'm going with the flow, and they're playing. Mambo Number 5, and then there was some kind of incident that happened that meant we couldn't leave and the police were called. It was some kind of incident happened outside. And all the time is now, when I hear this Mambo Number 5, I remember being trapped inside this nightclub and not being able to leave.
So Tim has nightmares. Mambo Number 5's playing and he's trapped in a nightclub and can't leave. That's what I'm hearing.
And I also read this thing on the internet. Do you on Twitter? Do you subscribe to an account called Fesshole?
Yes.
Yeah. So people writing with their anonymous confessions. And somebody on there confessed that their life goal was to spend quality time with all the ladies mentioned in Number 5 in order. And then he said, who's the first one? Is it Erica or Monica or whatever it is?
Hold on, little bit of Monica in my Monica.
Yeah. So he said he knew a Monica and he started dating her, and he had this kind of like idea that he was going to spend time with her and then move on to the next one. Then he found out he really liked Monica and he married her.
Yeah, it's a little bit of Monica, a little bit of Erica by my side, a little bit of Rita and the sun, a little bit of Tina all night long, a little bit of Jessica, here I am, a little bit of you makes me your man.
That's it. Yeah.
Spent a lot of time memorizing that as a kid, everybody. It's one of my party tricks.
I will say I listened to the whole of the Lou Bega album about 6 months ago, and Mambo Number 5 by far is the best song that's on it.
I like Tricky Tricky though.
Yeah, it's all right.
I liked it. Okay. Of course, I was like 9 when I owned that album and haven't listened to it since. So my opinions may vary. Just like I love the Baha Men album when I had it back as a kid, but now I don't know how I feel about it.
Is that that's the Who Let the Dogs Out?
I had the original album, and there's 2 other songs on there that I used to love as a kid. But anyway, I always was like, I liked Lou Bega's album, and I liked, this is where I was the music snob as a kid. I'm like, I got their albums and I know their other music. Like, anybody was really worried about what the Baha Men were putting out there. Anyway, so the next one is that I don't think I knew. It's Tainted Love by Soft Cell. Mm-hmm. And it was originally done 20 years earlier by Gloria Jones and writer Ed Cobb. And that version sounds nothing like the Tainted Cell version at all. I wouldn't even know they were the same song. I
could be honest with you, I did not know that. And again, that's one of those defining 80s pop songs that I've heard so many times. And when it goes, and it's like, that is Soft Cell. Like, they had other hits, but like when you say Soft Cell, that is the one that you think of. And I did not know that was a cover.
Well, and to be fair, if you heard it, Tim, side by side, I don't even know if you would pick up on it. Like, I guess the words are the same, but the way the singer is singing it and the arrangement and the it's completely different. Soft Cell made that their own. And I think it really does sit well in that kind of new wave kind of 80s the Soft Cell sound. I don't know if that's the proper way to say it, but that... I had no clue, never heard of it. And I don't know that the song was ever like released as a single, the Gloria Jones version, which is probably why we've never heard of it. Mm-hmm. But I was like, wait a second. And of course, my instinct was as soon as I was reading this article, I had to go and listen to the other version so I could talk about it. But I'm like, 110%. Anybody listening to this episode, even before we post the links, if you haven't went to the thing yet, go listen to that. I will send it to Tim. It's like, there's a few times where you hear a hint of the same song, like a slight hint. And sometimes you can hear the words are the same, but it doesn't have any of that alternative kind of new wave sound. It's more raspy. It's more R&B. It's very interesting and that speaks to Soft Cell because the way they were able to take that and make their arrangement so good is very interesting.
Yeah, because I think isn't it Soft Cell Mark Almond? I think he either left Soft Cell or Soft Cell dissolved, and then
dissolved,
and then he had a solo career way after the fact.
Yeah, but I don't know. It was very, very interesting. And I was hoping that's why I wanted to do this episode because I was like I said, Tim's like me. We're like, oh, yeah, I know everything about music. And then when stuff like that pops up, we're like, maybe I don't. Like, no clue. Not a clue. All right. So this one I did know. And then Reba even did a version of this, which was really cool. And I went back and listened to it. It's Beyonce's If I Were a Boy. Have you ever heard that song, Tim?
That's when did that come out, Joy?
Sometimes in the early 2000s. But you may have heard it. It's like If I Were a Boy, that song.
Well, I would tell you my Beyonce journey. I've now heard Crazy in Love.
Oh, yeah, because me and a certain listener were like, you have to go listen to it, Tim. What are your thoughts on it, Crazy in Love?
Well, it's got that kind of horn line at the beginning. And it sounds like a sample of something to me. I don't know. I couldn't work out what it was from. But after I heard it... I actually
think it is a sample.
Yeah. After I heard it, I actually half remembered it. I was like, yeah, I have heard this before, but I didn't recognize it as Beyonce's Crazy in Love.
There we go. Me and a listener, if you're listening, told Tim he needed to, on the Twitters, go back and listen. Her references, it was almost, what did she say? It was like a disco tune in a way. It has that beat. It has that upbeat sound. But yeah, it's definitely American. But anyway, so this song's talking about If I Were a Boy. Anyway, there's a girl who wrote it. It was called, her name is BCG. She's completely, I guess, indie. Like, we're an indie podcast where you would say this girl has no real music out there, nothing. Her claim to fame is she wrote this song. She sent it to her record company. They rejected it. And then somehow Beyonce got her hands on this very indie artist's song. But then even Reba McEntire did a version of it not too long ago. That was really good. And so I thought that was cool. So I went back and listened to her version, and it has how do I say this kindly? She's a good singer, but the arrangement and the pitches she chose, so she has kind of a nasally sound, and she has a very interesting tone to her voice, and that can be cool, right, Tim? That's different. We want different singers. It's not that. It just didn't work for this song and the arrangement she chose to do it in. So I completely understand why the record company rejected her version. And I'm sorry. There's a lot of people in the comment section who were big fans of this indie person I've never heard called BC Jean before. And like, this version's great. She's so unique. But in certain trying to say this tactively, my HR brain is coming through. In certain scenarios that works, right? Think of some artists that have Cher herself has a very interesting voice, right? Cher's voice is very deep. I'm trying to think of some other artists when mind's blanking, but there's a lot of artists that have really different sounds. It's not the distinctness, it just didn't work for this song. And then you have to be very careful with the arrangement you put with different artists who have different sounding voices, right? So it did not work, but I did know. And apparently there's some drama that Beyonce tried to claim it was her own song, though I cannot confirm or deny that. Please don't come for me, internet. I have no way of confirming that. I don't want the Beehive, as Bees fans say, coming after me because I don't know the truth.
Is that what Beyonce's fans are called? The Beehive?
Yeah, they're the Beehive. Tim learned something new today, everybody.
Well, I can tell you, I tried to get a movement going for Billy Ocean, but it didn't have any traction. So Billy Ocean came to Salem Civic Center about 10 years ago. And I thought, this is cool. Let's go see Billy Ocean. And I think I've told the story and Robin Reed and all that kind of stuff. But I kept going on about it online that his fans were Seafarers, because he's Billy Ocean. And I tried to get traction on this, but it didn't go anywhere.
Darn you, Tim. You have one job. One job. Because all those people who went to that concert with you were super fancy. Remember, you told me they were all this like super snobby. They don't want to be seafarer.
They were not seafarers, no.
All right. So this one I knew. And the original is really cool. It's Elvis's Hound Dog. It is originally done by Big Mama Thornton.
Yeah, so that comes from the era when Elvis was covering playing a lot of like rock and roll songs. You know, he was on the Sun Studios label. He was label mates with Jerry Lee Lewis and who else am I thinking of? You know, all the people in that kind of era. And he was playing a lot of that kind of very traditional 50s rock and roll type stuff. And some of those songs that he did perform were indeed covers that came from
a lot of African-American artists.
Absolutely. So, yeah. But, I mean, everybody would know, or the casual fan would know that Hound Dog is an Elvis song. But, yeah, it is most definitely a cover.
Her version is so fun, though, because she's using it as a way to call out, you ain't nothing but a hound dog crying all the time. Like, she's using it a way to call out men who aren't necessarily great, or women. I don't know her personally, but spouses or boyfriends, girlfriends, anyone who's done her wrong. And I mean, she's got soul, she's got class. It is fantastic. Her version is so much more, no offense to Elvis, because I like Elvis. Elvis is more mainstream, right? It's very what's going to be played on the radio. Whereas her version is more, this is my song, this is my spirit, this is my truth, and it is so cool to listen to.
But back in the day, Elvis was incredibly controversial. He was shaking them hips, and then the youth of America was going to implode on himself with his hips.
Did you know they're doing an Elvis biopic?
I didn't know that, and I don't know how I feel about that.
I saw the trailer because I went and watched the new Batman, and that's the movie tickets I wrote you about the other night. Anyway, that's a subpart. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. Moving along. Anyway, so, but I don't know.
Who's playing Elvis?
Austin. Oh, what is his name? He's not someone you would know. I only know him from, he was on... The Carrie Diaries, which was a TV show that was about Sex in the City, like prior to Sex in the City, but like I've never seen him in anything else. His name's Austin something. Can't remember his last name. Morgan, maybe? Austin Morgan, Austin Malone.
Austin Metro.
Something with an M, yeah. But he was doing a good job. He's got the look down. The voice was there. Like I'm not judging him because, we haven't seen him much, right? We don't know if he's good or not. And I loved a few of the other, like, we talked about Bohemian Rhapsody and we talked about Rocket Man. So I want it to be good, but I don't know. The trailer didn't sell me on it yet.
I think the problem is with Elvis, there is an incredible hardcore of Elvis fans, and there always will be, regardless of age. But I feel that the Elvis fandom is shrinking to some degree. I would imagine most young people, if you spoke to them about Elvis, there's a good proportion wouldn't know who Elvis was. And there's a good proportion that's like, oh, yeah, that's what my granddad listens to.
I have an aunt who's a super fan, and she's getting, up in age, so I understand.
Yeah. So whereas like Elton John and Queen are still in out there, and people are still listening to that and enjoying that, I think as Elvis moves away from when he was popular, as time moves on, I don't know how popular that would be. I think the difference with like the Beatles is I think the Beatles will transcend time. Yeah. Elvis, of course, was amazing and is this huge icon and all that kind of stuff. And the fans will always be the fans. But I think in the mainstream, I feel the Elvis fandom moves away each year.
I think so, too. And I don't know. I think his music is more niche, like it's got a certain niche to it, like it's very specific, whereas some of the other artists were saying trends. And I don't know if you agree with this, Tim, but I really love the song with that Elton John did with the new artist Dua Lipa. I don't know if you've heard it. It's the one that came out not too long ago where he does a version of his song with her song and they do a mashup. I absolutely adored it. And I thought that was really cool because that, once again, like you're saying, that brings Elton John out to a set of people that don't really know, maybe not even know who he is. Mm-hmm. Whereas Queen, even though, they're still touring, you still hear about them. And what years were Elvis? What were Elvis's biggest years? What, 60s, right? 70s?
Well, it's like late 50s through. 60s. I think he died in the early 70s. So
yeah, so that's also I think a thing is they're farther back. Like you said, the Beatles though they just seem to transcend because they're the Beatles.
And plus Paul McCartney is still out there playing Beatles songs, and he's selling out stadiums. Starr. Yeah, Ringo. But I mean, you go and see Paul McCartney play at some stadium, you're still going to pay $500 a ticket to go and see Paul McCartney play. And, that's 50 years after the Beatles were popular.
Exactly. And so I think that probably plays into it. I'll be curious. I'll probably watch it just because, I'm curious. And I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I want it to be good, but it's hard. That one's going to be an interesting. I only found out about it like a week ago. So we'll see. All right. This one we've talked about. I'm just going to say it for the audience, but we don't have to get into it. It's Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You, as originally done by Miss Dolly Parton. Written and done by Miss Dolly Parton.
Absolutely. And as I said before, when this came out, that was like a fun fact that radio DJs would say, did you know that used to be a Dolly Parton song? And
I feel like everybody knows it now.
Yeah, I think at this point, everybody knows that. But certainly when the Whitney song came out, I probably didn't know that.
I knew it growing up, but I don't know what years the Whitney song came out because my mother preferred the Dolly Parton version. So she made an emphasis to play the Dolly version over the Whitney version.
I think if Dolly's doing any song, regardless, that's the version I prefer to listen to.
Whitney's got a great voice. She did phenomenal. She was in the movie The Bodyguard, but I think that my mom liked Dolly's version more, like you're saying, just per preference, personal preference. So that was the version I heard more. I heard the Whitney version on the radio, but like at home, Mom would listen to the Dolly version.
Sure. Whitney has an amazing voice, and the two albums of hers I like is one's called Whitney and one's called Whitney Houston. And that has all those great Whitney Houston 80s hits on it. And, her version of I Will Always Love You is fantastic. But Dolly is Dolly. And once Dolly stamps it with her Dolly seal of approval and sings on it, that's the one you want.
Well, and I also think that it helps she wrote the song.
Yeah. And the whole thing about how she wanted to leave the Porter Wagner show and she wrote that song as a kind of farewell to Porter Wagner.
which she handled that with so much grace. She really could have told him to, a bunch of bad words. Once again, what do you feel? Have you been seeing the thing with her in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame where she's trying to step out and they won't let her?
Yeah. Yeah, she's like, I'm not worthy of this. I'd like to I don't want to be part of this contest.
Just piece it out.
Peace. And then they won't take her off the list. She's still on the list.
They're like, nope, don't get a choice. She's going to win and not even be there. All right. So this one, speaking of the Beatles, is one I'm aware of. The Beatles did a few covers. We've talked about this. But this one specifically is Twist and Shout. It's originally an R&B cover from a band called The Top Notes, and it has it's completely different too. Like the sounds it's so much different than the Beatles version. Have you ever heard it, Tim?
I have heard it, but again, it's one of those songs that's so identifiably Beatles. And the interesting thing about the Beatles version, you know that John Lennon's voice on it is so raspy, and it has a real kind of tear to it. And that was deliberate. They saved that song to the end of the recording session after they'd recorded all their other songs. And they knew that John's voice was almost shot, but they got him to record it at the very end because they wanted that sound out of him. So they waited till the end of the session till his voice was so hoarse and then got him to sing it.
Now, I'm going to say something controversial, Tim. There's another version of Twist and Shout that I like.
What, Isley Brothers?
No, it's completely random. In the early 90s, Salt and Pepper did a version. Have you ever heard their version of Twist and Shout?
I have heard their version of Twist and Shout. I have heard that. Now, the big question I have for you on the Twist and Shout is Spinderella on it.
I don't know. Is it?
Well, because they was Salt and Pepper, and their DJ was Spinderella.
Spinderella. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I don't know. I thought you knew.
No, was she a part of this amazing cover?
I have to give it a goog. I don't know the answer. I thought Tim had the answer. I was like, I don't know. Was she?
No, it's one of those things that I sometimes think about. It's like Salt and Pepper. I don't know if they're still about, but
they're like into gospel music now and stuff.
Well, something like that. But, it was Salt and Pepper, and then the person behind was the DJ Spinderella. And I don't know why that name stuck in my brain, but whenever anything Salt and Pepper comes up, I think, whatever became of Spinderella?
Okay, let's see. Because, Twisted Shout's also been done by like 7 other people, I'm fairly certain. But their version is one of my favorites.
I thought you was going to say the Isley Brothers because they did a version of it.
You weren't expecting it. Okay, I'll give it a good later. But anyway, I like their version, though it's cheesy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say it isn't, but I am a very fair person when it comes to music. Me and Tim have said this. You like what you like. And sometimes I like cheesy music because it makes me happy, and that's okay.
And honestly, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. I can listen to like some progressive rock Rush song that's 14 minutes long and goes through 5 movements, and then I can listen to the Snowmen doing the Hokey Cokey, and I can enjoy both of those in equal measure.
Still don't know how to feel about Hokey Cokey, but anyway. So this one is an artist. Okay, I have to give some background about this artist before I go to song. It's Uncle Cracker. First of all, let me start by saying, if you like Uncle Cracker, what did we just say? You like what you like, but he is not a personal favorite of mine. And here's a weird fact about Uncle Cracker. Did you know he is dating a girl or married to a girl or engaged to a girl, some female, who's from Galax, Virginia? And he comes and does a concert randomly, like every few years in Galax.
Do you know, I didn't know the Galax connection with his life partner, but I have heard of Uncle Cracker performing somewhere near here. So all the pieces are coming together.
So for our listeners who may not understand why this is so random, I grew up in Grayson County, which is the county right outside of Galax. Galax is technically a city, but let's just say when Tina Turner was singing about Nutbush city limits, she might have been singing about Galax. It's a little bigger now than a one-horse town, but, blink 3 times and you might miss it, is what we're getting at. So it's just really random, incredibly random.
Yeah, I mean, we mostly live in what you'd call small town America, sort of. I mean, we have Roanoke, which is a reasonably big city. Christiansburg, where we live, is smallish town. Blacksburg has a Virginia Tech campus, which sort of puts it on the map, but it's a smallish town in comparison. And then you haven't got to drive far out, and you're just in the middle of Nowheresville, really. You get on 81, you get a few junctions down before you get to Pulaski, and it's farmers' fields. So Galax, again, it's like one of these very small population centers, and then you get on the interstate and a few junctions down, and you're in the middle of nowhere. So it's not normal that we get any big acts around here. You sometimes get acts at the Roanoke Civic Center, and we used to get more acts at the Roanoke Civic Center, but as of late, you get your Joe Bonamassas, and you get, so even Elton John even sometimes comes here, but all the big touring acts, you look on all their tour dates, and there's never Roanoke, and you're like, oh, come on. The fact that a name, whether you like Uncle Cracker or not, comes to Galax is so wacky.
Did you know when I was in high school, I couldn't go because it was a bar club or something. I was underage and I was a good kid and didn't have no fake ID. What was that? It was a rap duo.
Salt
something
about
salt. No, not salt. But it really was about the Yin Yang Twins.
Okay.
The Yin Yang Twins randomly came to Galax when I was in high school once. But anyway, really weird. Don't know if they had a connection to someone in Galax or not, but somehow we end up with the Yin Yangs. So anyway, back to what Uncle Cracker did. First of all, like I said, he's not my genre, but you know the song Drift Away?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, it was originally done by John Henry Kurtz. I can't say his last name. Kurtz. Whatever. That guy. But and to be fair, once again, it's very similar. Uncle Crack really didn't change much. Same sound, same genre, same, like, you know, that kind of day I'm more that melancholy kind of sound. Yeah.
Well, the question I have for you is, I'm familiar mostly with the Dobie Gray version. So what you're saying is you're saying that Dobie Gray is a cover too?
Yeah. Apparently, the original is John Henry Kurtz.
Okay.
Now, Tim and me are like, whoa, now we're even more. And a few of these songs, I think, have been covered by more than one person. This article is just saying the most recent person you may know. But yeah. But what was that one song Uncle Cracker had that was so famous that I used to hate because it was so dumb because it was about cheating. It's about a spouse cheating on another spouse. I can't remember what the name of it was, but it used to drive me insane because when I was in high school, people would dedicate that song, like at the high school dance, to their girlfriend or boyfriend. And I'm like, it's about cheating. And then there was always Lips of an Angel by Hinder, which is also about cheating. Oh, what was that? Follow Me and that Follow Me song. You know what I'm talking about, Tim?
I think so. Yeah, I think I've heard that.
Yeah, it's about cheating. And it used to drive me insane when people would, because you know the hot song of the week, right? You know.
Sure.
But anyway, sorry, Uncle Cracker, you're just not for me.
Fair enough. And I think, isn't Uncle Cracker something to do with Kid Rock as well?
I don't know.
Aren't they connected in some way? Didn't they perform together or something? Or
sounds right. I'll take your word for it, but I'm not going to go seek that out. So this one is what I think Tim would probably know. It is Led Zeppelin's Dazed and Confused. Did you know it was a cover, Tim?
Yeah, because everything off that first Led Zeppelin album is a cover because they're all old blues songs. They're all old.
And they got a lot of trouble.
Yeah, because the original pressings of Led Zeppelin 1 had everything credited to Jimmy Page and Robert Plant and John Paul Jones and, etc., John Bonham. But they got sued and countersued and undersued and oversued and all that kind of stuff. And now any pressing you get there, it lists the original artists and they're getting a royalty or their estates are getting a royalty.
Yeah, if you go down the rabbit hole of Led Zeppelin songs that are covers, you'll be going for years. It's crazy how many songs. So they're saying this was originally from an artist called Jake Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
Page says it inspired him to write Dazed and Confused. But I think he's using the term inspired loosely because when you go back and listen, they're very similar, Tim.
Exactly. Dazed and Confused in its studio form It's an interesting song. It's a different thing. It's that descending bass riff, and it speeds up at the end and all that kind of stuff. And I think the amount of time that song takes to be played is about right. If you have any of their live albums, like When the West Was Won, or the one with the black cover that completely escapes the title off my brain right now. But goodness me, Dazed and Confused is like 27 minutes long. It's like, come on.
It's very long. I don't know. Can I say this and not be controversial, Tim? I'm just not a big Led Zeppelin fan.
And that's fair enough. I mean, I discovered Led Zeppelin later in life. It certainly wasn't a staple of growing up. There's lots of Led Zeppelin songs I like, and I've got I have all of the Led Zeppelin albums on vinyl that I bought. And in fact, the pressings sound amazing. Jimmy Page did such a good job, and the pressings are good and all that kind of stuff. But if I was talking about my favorite bands, they certainly don't. They're not up there in my favorite bands.
I think that like there's songs like I have 2 Led Zeppelin T-shirts, but it's not that like I like them, but they're not at the top of my list, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
And that could just be time. It could be they're very over, like you hear about them a lot, you know, the overplaying, the influence of that. I don't know. But for me, Led Zeppelin is not one of those bands that like I go out on my way to listen to. Anyway, so speaking of Salt and Pepper, so before Salt and Pepper and In Vogue, and this one has a crazy story, did What a Man, which I'm sure you probably heard that song before.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? Okay. Gospel soul singer Linda Lindell, who once supported such acts as James Brown and Ike and Tina Turner, recorded it in 1968.
Okay.
And she was not able to perform the song until 2003 due to threats from the Ku Klux Klan at the time of its release.
Wow.
How sad. And how wonder we didn't know that existed. Like, that's how they were able to keep that quiet.
Unbelievable.
Crazy. What a crazy story.
And in 2003, it blows my mind.
The original recording was in 1968, but she never performed the form. And like, okay. Thinking back on what I know about the song, I don't understand why the Ku Klux Klan would be that worried about one song. There's a lot to unpack in that story, I think.
I have no time for their thought process.
That's true.
All. So if I'm thinking about why they'd have a problem with that song,
it probably doesn't matter. It's not worth our time.
No.
You make a good point. All right. We're going to do 2 more. And I have this one for Tim because this is one of his favorites. It is Miss Sheryl Crow's The First Cut is the Deepest.
And that would be Cat Stevens.
It is a Cat Stevens song. Yay, Tim. Have you heard? So I'm guessing you've heard his version.
I have. And his has got that kind of like orchestral type thing and it builds and stuff. But I don't know which one I prefer the most because I love Sheryl Crow. I think she's a fantastic musician and I love her voice and how she plays and her albums and everything. But the original is good. So I don't know if I had to pick one of those out to listen to, I think they'd be about equal, but Sheryl would be just about that much.
I kind of agree. I like Cat Stevens. It's not that, but apparently it was also recorded. So Cat Stevens wrote it, but he didn't record it first. It was recorded by soul singer P.P. Arnold before Cat Stevens put his own version out. I've never heard that version, but I'd be curious to hear it.
Okay.
News to me. But yeah, I think I agree. I'm not as big of a Sheryl Crow diehard fan as a Tim O'Sullivan, but I do like her version. And her version is one of those ones that like it's played on the radio. Like it's a very known song, generally, like you said.
Sure. Absolutely.
This is one that I wanted to bring up because I don't know that very many people know this one. It is Johnny Cash's Ring of Fire. Did you know that was a cover?
I didn't. That is such a defining Johnny Cash song. So
here's the crazy part. The majority of people respond, so if asked to sing, this is the lyrics, a Johnny Cash lyric, the majority of people would say, I fell into a burning ring of fire, or some slight variation of that lyric is what it says. Yet, before the song's release in 1963, Cash's sister-in-law, Anita Carter, was actually the first person to record it.
Oh, wow.
So from the Carter family.
So it was all within the Carter family realm, but
Yeah.
there we are. I did not know that.
That's crazy. How do we not know these things, Tim? How do we not know them?
Well, we're learning them now, and we're letting people know via the gift of our podcast.
All right. I have no idea how much longer we have, Tim. Do we have long time for one or two more?
Let's do one more,
Okay.
and then I've got breaking news that's just come in from the No Name Music Cast Facebook page, and it's breaking news so when you hear this will be breaking news of 3 episodes ago, so it might not be quite as breaking for you as it is for us, but anyhow, let's do one more and I'll bring you this breaking news flash.
I'll pick one that is another one that is very associated with the artist. It is Stevie Wonder's Superstition. Not superstitious, Superstition.
Superstition.
With an N on the end. So it was actually delivered by guitarist Jeff Beck. Did you know that, Tim?
I did know that. And did you know that the drum pattern on it was played by Jeff Beck originally? Jeff Beck was loafing about in the studio playing with the drums, and he came up with that drum groove pattern, and Stevie said, that's great, we need to use that. And then, of course, Stevie's drummer played it, and et cetera, et cetera.
So there was some talking back and forth. It says during the talking book sessions is what they're calling him. Stevie Wonder reworked the song right before Beck's album was set to be delivered. So like he was working on the song, and Stevie Wonder got his out first, though technically Jeff Beck recorded it first. So there you go.
There we are. Fantastic.
All right, what's this hot off the presses news,
Okay,
Tim?
this is breaking news. So we're recording this at the end of March, and the episode's just dropped about song stories, and I've put in brackets, who knew saffron is yellow? So we posted this up to the Facebook tonight, as we often do when the episodes drop. And our friend Jilbo is listening, and she didn't know that we're recording right now, but we are. And she's just put up on the Facebook, just started listening to this, can confirm that saffron is a yellow spice, the most expensive spice in the world by weight, and it's made from the stamens of crocuses.
Well, there you go.
And she said, once upon a time, I knew the type of crocus, but now I forget. I'm too tired to give it a goog.
To be fair, I didn't come up with Give It a Goog. It comes from another podcast, but I love that it's catching on. It comes from the True Crime Obsessed podcast, which we are not sponsored by, but it's a cool podcast. If they would like to sponsor us, please give me a call.
well, there we are. We've learned about cover versions. We've learned about saffron. The big saffron thing has been done. However, we have not found out what happened to Spinderella, so maybe someone can solve that for us on next week's record.
I do have one thing to say, Tim. I tried my hardest to look up status quo and why they did not make it in America, and there's no defining answer. Basically, all I could come up with was timing and producing, and it just didn't work out.
So, sometimes it's like that. Some people break the US market and some people don't, and sadly our favorite boogie rockers just didn't, and that's a shame.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
See you later. Bye-bye.